you're like me. You're up too early with Eric. Am I happy to be up this early at 2:30 in the morning? Not especially. But, I know my ways. My ways are such that sometimes I just get off schedule. Realistically, I went to bed too early last night, but just didn't feel like staying up any longer. It was like 7 o'clock at night. I went to go lie down. Now here I am up at 2:30 in the morning. Where's his mom? You're alive. Glad to see it. I was talking with Rachel in the car last night about how we should email you today and make sure you're still alive. Now, if you hadn't been still alive, I'm not sure there really would have been much of anything I could do about it. But I'm glad I don't have to fret over that anymore. We'll make another pot of coffee while we're here. These paper towels are excellent for making coffee. Because they don't have any half sheets. It's all full sheet paper towels. All right, let's just start our cup of coffee. It's a half cup of coffee from yesterday. Yeah, my hours have been weird too. Today, I believe, is the 14th. It's Not too nice to accuse paper towels of being full sheet. Well, it does work better if you're using the paper towels as coffee filters. Now, I always use paper towels as coffee filters because regular coffee filters let grounds get into the coffee. Acacia, I have to ask the question. I don't mean to be a pill or pest or something, but did you ever make it where you were going? You know, I'm curious. I can't help it. Or do you just say, you know what? This drive is too long. I'm going back to Los Angeles. Maybe, huh? All right, well, let me change the question around. Would you like a transubstantiated bong rip? Nobody's going to answer that question, maybe. They're going to answer that question with a firm and hearty yes. So, Acacia, I hereby transubstantiate this bong rip from my lungs to your brain. Yeah, that's the first bong rip of the day, Acacia. So that's a pretty special one. You didn't just get any old bong rip. Sounds like Rachel's up. It sounds like Rachel's up too early with Eric. Let's see if she comes down. You're a hop, a skip, and a jump away. You are still not in New Mexico? Have you been walking to New Mexico? High 71. When you use BRB, you're actually going to be in a long time. Is that what you're saying? Well, I, for one, am happy to be live streaming and have a couple people here hanging out with me. Because I don't know what it is with my thermoregulation. The temperature in this house right now is at 67 degrees. It used to be, if I slept at 67 degrees, I'd probably find it, if anything, a little too cold. But at 67 degrees last night, by the time the middle of the night rolled around, I was just burning up. I think I might turn it down a notch just for Rachel's sake. Because, you know, it's like actually, I don't know if you've heard this before, but apparently heat rises. Just like voices carry, heat rises. It's just like what it does. Rachel's above me in the day room. If I think it's hot down here, even though it's 67 degrees, she must think it's hot up there. I'm gonna take a couple of B vitamins. I've been taking these pretty religiously. I do believe they're making a difference for me. I'm not a big believer in vitamins and stuff, but I believe in general the B vitamins are very slowly curing my neuropathy, little bit by little bit. Ruben, Acacia's gonna be there in person in just 30 minutes. And then you guys can make love to the gentle sound of Eric's voice in the background. Nothing could be more stimulating sexually than listening to Eric, you know, talk about getting a cup of coffee, going poo, any number of things that he might talk about. That's why on the set of pornography movies, they usually play Talking with Famous People in the background to make sure that everybody involved is hyper aroused. Unfortunately, I've got some bad news for you. Okay? Some very bad news. The only way to reset your weed tolerance so that you get high again. I haven't gotten high in years. The only way to do that is to quit smoking weed for like a week. And neither of us wants to do that. Let's be honest with ourselves, Ivar. Neither of us wants to quit smoking weed for a week. Do you think talking with famous people is highly arousing in the status quo? Just imagine how arousing it would be if I didn't smoke weed all the time. Well, Winston's mom does make a good point. It is true that if you're smoking a bunch of one strain, like maybe you go to the weed store, you buy an eighth of this weed, you're like, oh, I love this weed, it's fantastic. And so then you go and you buy like a half ounce of it. Bad idea. Because it'll stop getting you high faster than a different kind of weed would, you know? The other thing to remember is cherish your morning bong rips. Those are the only ones that really get you a little bit high. But let me just say, Ivar, perhaps as much as any chat I've ever read, I feel you, bro. Okay? I feel you. Rachel prefers to smoke these things. This is full of concentrate. It's less coffee, you know, than smoking bong rips. But I don't know. I prefer smoking what they now call flower, even though it's obviously those are not flowers. The buds that you smoke from weed is actually is actually I forgot what I was saying. When I was driving to LA last week with Rachel, I said, you know what always makes me, when I think of this, it makes me feel jealous? Is that guy who sang that song, I can still get high. I can play the guitar like a motherfucking riot. Well, guess what she told me about that guy? He's dead from a drug overdose. He can't get high anymore either. I'd much rather not be able to get high for my reason than his. So, I don't know if you knew that, but that guy who sings that song, he's dead. Bradley Noel? What is he, some sort of East Coast preppy? Eastern Seaboard preppy? So anyway, that guy, no matter what his song says, he actually cannot get high anymore. I'll tell you who else cannot get high anymore is Scott Weiland. Why can he not get high anymore? Because he is also dead. Too much tripping now, my soul's worn thin. I always liked that line. I thought that was pretty good lyrics. Too much tripping, now my soul's worn thin. I feel that song too. I've done a little bit. Probably a little bit too much tripping, you know? At least a little bit too much tripping. Stone Temple Pilots. Yeah, they have some good songs. Not so bad. Another famous Lodi recently died was Matthew Perry. Although everybody says he was actually sober when he died. A lot of A lot of people with drug and alcohol problems end up dying from them. You know, I feel very fortunate that the hot tub, unique rides. It wasn't a bathtub, really. It was a hot tub. It's weird, but you know, the thing to remember is this: everybody says he was sober, but that's the most dangerous time to do drugs. You know, it's like the last time I had a problem with doing too much drugs was when I ate too many mushrooms. The reason I ate too many mushrooms is because I hadn't eaten them in a long time, so my tolerance was back to zero. It wasn't that funny how camouflage he was. We were both saying how we wish he had worn some tan pants too. Oh, I know. She does have a terrific fashion sense. No, Rachel's taste is impeccable. What's with this Fontana? You mean fentanyl? I've never done any fentanyl before. I know somebody who smoked fentanyl, but I've never actually done it myself. I'm not that into downers, you know. It's not made by the government. It's made by a pharmaceutical company, which is talking about discontinuing it for the same reason that the manufacturers of Quaaludes discontinued it. How is it flooding the whole country? Well, I mean, most of it's like not real fentanyl, you know. No, pharma does not equal big government. I mean, if you know anything about buying drugs, unique rides, all you need is some dark coin and the onion router and well, there are multiple interest groups in government unique rides. Don't be childish about it. I mean, the reality with big pharma is they exist according to the dictates of the FDA. It's not easy to get a drug approved. It's very reasonable to say the government was involved in the clusterfuck of disaster called COVID. And that obviously they should never have fast-tracked the vaccines, you know. Well, look, there's a multiplicity of force vectors representing the U.S. government, doing a multiplicity of things. Some of them seedy and shady, and some of them perfectly above board. The important thing, unique rights, is you don't want to be guilty of platypussing, okay? You want to transcend the Phineas and Ferb level of politics, in which corporations are a platypus, the government's a platypus, society's a platypus. A platypus is what's keeping you down. Well, because platypusing is dumb. It's for children. It's for children whose NI is either not in a good spot or is just wildly overactive. It's not that there's no truth to it. It's that platypusing is a waste of time. Because you're trying to deal irreducibly with things that can only be dealt with reducibly. I'm saying introverted intuition is running amok, right? Intuition is the appropriate way to know certain sorts of things, and experience is the appropriate way to know other sorts of things. And still, other sorts of things are best deliberated. You know, when you're talking about politics, you need a combination of all three epistemologies, and none of them being subjective. Ideally, like your experience has to. You need that kind of show me state SI frame to counterbalance your intuition because intuition can be wrong lots of times. Well, sure you were. You were trying to conflate money with power and doing all the sorts of dumb NI things that people do. The thing is, you have to remember corporations only have their own single interests in mind. Those are not universalizable interests generally and don't set a lot of precedent. If you're not thinking about lobbying correctly, then you're not thinking about society and government correctly. Well, class is not a real thing in America. I mean, sure, people have differing levels of wealth and have differing levels of empowerment accordingly. But you'll note that I've always been in the same class of person, regardless of whether I've been poor or well off. And I've been both plenty of times. So it's important not to get too hung up on our intuitive leaps and remember to deal with our analysis in a rigorous adult fashion. Well, the government is made up of a multiplicity of wells of power. We have checks and balances in the three branches. If you were going to complain about something specific and be meaningful, you might say, essentially, bureaus underneath the executive branch have too much independence, like intelligence bodies, you know. But you have to be, if you want to talk meaningfully about government, society, politics, etc., you've got to be talking about specific problems and specific solutions, specific policy advocacies, not this platypusing stuff. It's this is the problem, not the solution. I think you underestimate the ability of amateur chemists. If you buy drugs off the dark web, you know, one time I received a package in the mail that had, I don't know, 60 what looked like 30 milligram Adderall pills, purported to be, but they weren't real Adderall pills. They were done by a chemist, and they were probably just straight Dexedrine, which is better than Adderall anyway. So, do we want to empower anti-government, anti-drug efforts of government? No, of course not. Is it bad that people are dying because they're super into this drug, fentanyl, and its street cousins? Well, yeah, but shit happens. You know, people die of drug overdoses. It happens. I certainly don't want to empower the DEA to do more. Talk about unconstitutional. The DEA is a thoroughly unconstitutional body. It should be disbanded. The federal government has no jurisdiction over that shit. Are you going to get rid of the FDA too, Eric? No, but it's equally unconstitutional. That's where you got to be pragmatic sometimes. It works well enough, the FDA system. The DEA doesn't work at all. It just violates people's rights in a holocaust of injustice. Yeah, it's ridiculous to say you're a sovereign citizen. The idea of individual sovereignty can be summed up simply enough. That which is not expressly prohibited is permitted. Not that you don't have to follow the laws. Now, additionally, it should be stated that if a law is unjust and you break it, you should be able to make an appeal to jury nullification. That should be explicitly permitted, since it's only by case law that judges are empowered to and kind of directed to do everything in their power to reduce the possibility of jury nullification. So yes, individuals have sovereignty over themselves and their lives, but that doesn't mean they're not subject to the law. That's ridiculous. Because we live in a free society, we express sovereignty in that fashion. That which is not expressly prohibited is permitted. In other words, I'm a sovereign citizen in that you can't arrest me for nothing. You have to have a reason to arrest me. People are dumb. They don't know how to. That's not true, unique rights. Everybody has rights with or without funds. The concept of rights is one of reciprocal responsibilities. A right is that which confers a duty onto somebody. So if you acknowledge that you have a duty not to murder people, then you acknowledge that other people have rights. No, sovereign and citizen is not opposite. Sovereignty simply means authority over a given thing, jurisdictional authority. So it's like because you don't define any terms, you don't think well, right? You need to define your terms. Sovereignty is jurisdictional authority over something. Do I have sovereignty over my own life? Yeah. Does that mean I exist outside of society and am not subject to laws? No. It means I live in a just society where I by and large, have freedom and liberty. You'll note you and I, unique rights, are both engaging in our right to free speech. You're speaking incorrect words, and I'm correcting you. Why? Because no, every citizen has some degree of sovereignty. How much sovereignty and over what depends, right? So, because I've defined the term sovereign, I can use it to mean something. And that's important. That's a lot better than using words to not mean things. Remember what sovereignty is, it's jurisdictional authority over something. So, for example, if you are a felon who's incarcerated, you have much less sovereignty than if you are a guy making coffee at his house in the morning. Nobody's telling me to make this coffee. Nobody's telling me not to make this coffee. I have sovereignty over my beverage. Were I in jail, I would not have sovereignty over it. Children have a lot less sovereignty than adults do, but they don't have fewer rights. And we can mean things when we use the terms as they're defined, rather than just willy-nilly, like a sloppy slaps a lot, you know. We don't want to be sloppy slaps a lot. Various melodies that I sing in live streams get me copyright content claimed all the time. Like, I might just sing like The Girl from Ipanema or something, which is what I was just about to sing. And it might get copyrighted. But it doesn't matter because I don't have these streams monetized anyway. It's Tuesday. Tuesday is the absolute worst day of the week. But maybe not this Tuesday. Have you considered that possibility? I'd like to get a variety of little chores done today. Will I get any chores done today? Maybe, maybe not. I'm feeling quite lazy lately. Lazy, like unmotivated slash not really feeling it in terms of doing stuff. A little bit restless. Wrestling with one's emotions is always probably a waste of time. I'm thinking. Good morning. I think it's a waste of time to wrestle with one's emotions because they'll just endlessly be vague and confusing. Like, my number one emotion right now is a sense of disappointment in myself for my myriad failures. There's so much I could do and so little that I actually do. I feel like I need to, I don't know, grow up or something. Ah, but I hate growing up. I want to just be a little kid all the time. A little kid with no school. In that regard, I've always identified with the that song Stressed Out by that band. Something Pilots. I want to say Stone Temple Pilots now because we were talking about them earlier, but that's not what they're called. Wake up, you need to make money. It's like, oh. You know, now I find myself thinking about long-term financial planning, like 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Oh, dear God. I don't want to think about that stuff. That seems hard. It's called joy in your life. I can't just force myself um, into being joyful. I've got a couple of ideas in the works for, like, I need to crunch some numbers, you know, but it seems very, oh, the song, Put a Little Joy in Your Cup. I'm not sure that. No, I can eat whatever, Ruben. It doesn't make any difference. My weight never changes. Vodka works too. Unfortunately, I cannot drink any vodka anymore, so. The thing is, in general, what I really need to do before I figure out anything is I need to crunch the numbers on passive income in the status quo and see how much of a negative cash flow we're actually running, first of all. you know. I quit drinking 10 years ago almost, unique rides, and it changed my life. But I was a real drunk. Well, NFJs are like that, Ruben R. Their weight can go like this, depending on what they're applying themselves to. I don't know this from hearing her say it, but observationally, it seems like Rachel's been dropping weight lately. That's observationally regarding her eating habits and her actual weight too. So, um, do you know the INFJ Lauren Sapola? No, I don't. I'm sorry to hear about your mom, Unique Rides. It's been a death-filled stretch of time. Within the last year, within the last 14 or 15 months, I've lost my mother, my father. Rachel lost her grandmother. My daughter lost two grandfathers and a grandmother. Um, it's been a death-filled year. If you're an INFJ, would that explain your awkwardness? No, not really. INFJs generally are not awkward. They might feel awkward, but they aren't perceived by others as being awkward. Yeah, that's what I mean, socially. INFJs are probably the least socially awkward type of all. I mean, you might say ENFJs. But ENFJs being extroverted are gonna take more social action and put themselves inherently socially more at risk. If you're seen as stuck up or too blunt, then no, you're almost certainly not an INFJ. I mean, it's conceivable for INFJs to be seen as stuck up, I suppose. Uh, Although they probably won't be. Well, either of the FE polar types is going to be perceived as pretty awkward. ISTJ, INTJ, but also FE 8th, ESTJ, ENTJ will come across as awkward. It's kind of a toss up again because the extrovert is going to display more social action and therefore is going to be taking more social risk inherently. So fourth slot FE might be perceived as awkward as well. INTPs, ISTPs. ISTPs are likely to be perceived as mean or dicks, which is another kind of FE failure. You know, I'm likely to be perceived as sometimes a dick, sometimes awkward, FE third. The ones who are least awkward, least likely to be perceived by other people as awkward, are FE1, FE2, FE5. Um, yeah. FE3 can pull it off, but it doesn't, it's not, you know, nobody would ever call me the most socially graceful person in the world. But I'm also very comfortable being on stage, quote unquote. So, in that regard, it's like people watching this or listening to this, they aren't hearing somebody who's nervous. Obviously, I've live streamed 100 billion times. Well, sure. There are some contexts that are much more likely, in which awkwardness is much more likely to ensue than other contexts. But it's also the case that there's an NIFE quality to the whole thing, which is somebody can behave in a cringy fashion and the simple truth of it is it scored a meow on the awkwardness scale. So, you know, you got to give holistic stuff its due space as well. And that due space is regarding interfacey stuff, because that requires knowledge, not deliberation. So yeah, whether or not something's awkward is not a reducible truth. I can't win the argument that meow is definitively awkward. But that doesn't change the fact that meow is or isn't. That's really where I encounter epistemological clash with others, is I think I've got a pretty good grasp of where and when, what kind of deliberation or knowledge is appropriate. I think almost nobody else has a very good grasp of that. They just express their function biases. Money's naturally pretty clean about it. But in that instance, I think he was displaying NI countervalued. Do I actually know what type he is? No. but that would be consistent with that. INTPs prefer that everything be reducible. They have a great distrust of interface holistic truths. I'm not putting any weight on that nonsense. That's basically what an INTP says. No matter how well frozen over the lake water might be. Money? I don't think so. Yeah. Money's playing. The money seems to me like they're playing NTP fun games, but, you know, I've been fooled before. Oliver Linehan fooled me before I typed in. CJ O'Connell fooled me before I typed in. Before I type somebody, I can be fooled. After all, like, if you just sort of described some symptoms to a doctor and said, "What's wrong with me?" Well, the doctor could easily be fooled. They didn't have any chance to examine you. Oh, trouble. Would you like to know a secret? Do you promise not to tell? Closer. Let me whisper in your ear. Yes, you're a good kitty. Yes, you are. And Daddy knows. Yes, he does. He knows and he loves. That's just mommy. I'm imagining. Could be wrong. How much of my life am I going to spend watching you eat, kitty? Talk about a big responsibility. This cat requires a lot of attention and effort. When Rachel and I were at the pizza place yesterday, we saw these families with multiple small children. As I walked out, I said to her, "Aren't you glad we don't have children?" I mean, I have a child, but she's an adult, you know. And Rachel said, "Yeah, I have enough trouble just watching trouble eat as much as I have to." And babies require even more than that. You're a silly man. You're a big baby yourself is what you are. Yes, who's my big baby? Yes, you are. You're a big baby. Do you need to take such a long time to eat, though? Can you maybe be done now? Good. Finally. Well, it's now 3:30 in the morning. I've been streaming for just 1 hour. That's a fairly short amount of streaming. But I do plan on going back to bread. I like your SI story, Ruben. Well, the thing is, I have little doubt that I will be streaming again soon enough. I think what I'll do is, that's me, Unique Reds. I'm host Eric. Yeah. But I'm not I'm not really encouraging people to do that right now. I mean, if they pay me, I'll type them. But I have a limited amount of feeling it. That's fine. I don't care. That's totally fine. You're right. I could not GAF less. YouTube's a funny place. It's like I've been YouTubing for such a long time. You know, 5 million views and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. life, what are you going to do? All you can do are a couple of things. You could go back to bed, you could live stream, or you could do some kind of chore. Or you could be on amphetamines, at which point these questions are become moot. Those are your four choices in life. You can combine 2 and 3. You can do some chores while live streaming. It's possible, though probably not advised, to combine 1 and 3. You could sleep and live stream at the same time. But really, in an ideal world, you're number 4. Oh, Winston's mom, a lack of knowledge about what I should do is not the problem, unfortunately. If only that were the problem, then better knowing what I can do would solve the problem. Unfortunately, it's not a lack of knowledge. However, that reminds me to remind you that the definition of an appeal to ignorance has a little song for easy memorization. The use of a lack of knowledge about something to infer that the opposite is true. Bum, bum, bum. The use of a lack of knowledge about something to infer that the opposite is true. That's the song for appeal to ignorance. You need to use the ESTJ, jump, pump, subconscious to get stuff done. Oh, I was thinking maybe about using my conscious SI to go back to bed. How about that, Money? What do you think about that? That's to help Acacia unload her beshortings. The R stands for Reuben spelled the other way, Unique Rides. If you graduated with honors spelled like that from C.S. Joseph University, Money, you make me think that you might be from England. You know, especially if you also spell color like that. I'm using my top-notch detective skills to infer things about you. Don't worry. Why do you unload your suitcase when you get to a motel? Maybe you just mean bring it in from the car. Does anybody really unpack their suitcase at the hotel and like hang up all their clothes and put things in the drawers and stuff? You know, it just seems like a good way to lose your stuff. Oh, you mean just bringing it in from the car? Yeah. I think Rachel kind of unpacks a little bit when she gets to a hotel room. After you unload her car, you're going to have to upload your cock. Which is something I need to do today as well. I never got around to it yesterday. It was like, because of course, before I'm going to have sexual intercourse, what does that mean? I have to take a shower first. So that's a big production, you know? It's like, get all your clothes off, get in the shower, wash yourself. The thing is, I would I would normally want to keep streaming right now to make sure that Acacia and Ruben have their normal lovemaking background audio on. But they could just play a previous stream, you know. Just drag it into the Airbnb. Hmm. Airbnb just sounds like camping on an empty lot. Nothing but air as your walls. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but air does not make a good wall. Yeah, I see it on the screen. I do. On the TV screen. I know. Well, I figured as much, Ruben. So, a lot of people told me that I'm the new Al Green slash Marvin Gaye. Me talking about cognitive functions just sounds like bow. It's like the sound of a bass guitar doing that. Yeah, I'm Marvin Straight. That's right. With my hit R&B song, "Woman, It's Time for Me to Touch Your Body with My Hands and Other Parts," which is a Motown classic. "Woman, it's time for me to touch your body with my hands and other parts." Sounds a little bit like um, the title of an anime. Don't you think so? I think so. All right, I'm gonna go now. Thank you all for being here. I'm glad to know that Acacia finally made it to her destination. If she were an actual acacia tree growing from Los Angeles to New Mexico, she would have made it there sooner. Anyway, I'll see you all later this morning when I undertake an attempt to do some chores. Goodbye and good luck until then.